Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Matthew Dark. You all know me, and you're probably sick of hearing my voice, but this is the first official interview for Voices from the Dark Side, and what a better way to kick it off than with the guys from Blitzkid. Do you guys want to take a moment and introduce yourselves?
TB Monstrosity, guitars, vocals. Argyle Goolsby, bass vocals.
Ram, drums.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so to start, where does the name Blitzkid come from, and does the name hold any specific meaning?
Okay, yeah, it holds specific meaning. However, it came from really a nebulous place. I guess you could probably kick that off a little better than I could.
The name Blitzkid originated because we were kicking around the idea of changing our band name, which we found out through a couple of different channels that a couple of band names that we had previously were already taken. So we were like, okay, well, we need to change the band name. And I wrote a song called Slaughter to Sock Hop. And I wanted the song to be kind of based on the movie Carrie, where there was like an antagonist who was getting picked on by their peers in high school, and instead of using telekinesis, like, it's a he instead of a she, so he kills everyone at the final high school dance of the year. And in the song I was like, well, this kid needs a nickname, so we'll call him Blitzkid, because I thought, if people say you're blitzed out of your mind when you're drunk, or whatever, they can mean you're crazy too. So that's kind of, and from that I was like, hey, I think we should call the band name band Blitzkid, and we were like, yeah, okay, we'll do that till something better comes along.
Yeah.
And then after that, it just kind of stuck. So
it was just an unscripted kind of moment of artistic gestalt, basically. It was like, well, let's call him Blitzkid, and we needed a moniker, and that's what it was for a while. And by the time we decided to change it, people had already identified us as Blitzkid. So,
and anything you'd like to add to that?
No, he's thinking of adverbs.
Okay. Is it difficult being so musically diverse with such few band members? And do you have any guest artists contributing to any of your albums?
Not at all to the first part of that question. I think every band needs to be musically diverse, no matter who you are. If you're one, it seems like more so in musical genres, you find the most artistic people in one person in the band. Whether or not you like them, you look at guys like Beck, Moby and people like that. Those aren't my cups of tea, I should say, but still, that's an artistic way of going about things. And when you get three people together who have that same understanding, it makes it a lot easier, because when you're by yourself, you can get into a corner and not even realize you're there. And if you have somebody to bounce ideas off of, they go, well, wait a minute, let's go this direction. And if you're all willing to go in any direction, then I think you're wide open, and your band's going to suffice much more. So,
yeah, I think it works for us because when Goolsby and I first met, we bonded over the fact that we liked Minor Threat and Iron Maiden. So right off the bat, we were two like-minded people that just had influences all over the board. So when it comes time for us to write songs, we don't say, oh, well, it's got too much of a metal kind of feel to it, or it's got too much of a doo-wop kind of thing going on right here. We just do what we do. We write what we write.
We lucked out because for us, and I'm not saying it's this way for people who have the benefit of being inducted into a scene at an early age, but for us, we came from a really backwater area where, anything that was emotion and music and touched that raw nerve, we were into. We didn't say, well, how are the people down east side of town going to think about it? How are the people on the west side of town going to think about this style? Because we didn't care. We were just happy to have music come our way, and we applied that to what we do. But as far as guest artists, the past two albums we've had Paul Lifeless he was in a band called The Banner, still is. I was in a band when we met him called Mr. Monster, and was doing double duty between them and a band called Lifeless Alliance. And we've had him play drums on 5 Sellers Below and Anatomy of Reanimation Volume 1. And he just played on the split with the Crypt Keeper 5, which we just now finished, called Split Personalities, along with Dave Graves, D.T. Graves from the Crypt Keeper 5. We've had some people such as was George on our record?
George from the Serpentines was not on our record, but he did produce the vocals from 5 Sellers Below.
So.
Johnny from the Crypt Keeper 5, Blue from the Crypt Keeper 5 has played sax on the last two records. Jimmy Ray from the Crypt Keeper
guitar,
5.
Everything.
Dr. Chud helped with background vocals.
So.
Excellent. Okay, this next question is specifically for Goolsby, nothing personal, guys.
Okay.
Goolsby, is it a challenge being the frontman for both Gorgeous Frankenstein and Blitzkid? Is it hard to divide your time, and are there any conflicts of interests?
No, I like being in both bands because it keeps me on my toes. I've always enjoyed that about music, especially live. In the studio, you know, it's great fun, but live you're really put to the test. You know, and as we were talking about, we're so musically diverse. I come from an area where the style of music that Gorgeous Frankenstein is, I am into as well, outside of being in that kind of band. It does have like flavors of, you know, old kind of thrash and elements like that I'm happy to be a part of. You know, there's never been a conflict of interest. There's never been a, well, you know, this band has to be more important than the other. This band kind of was an anomaly for me, like as far as Gorgeous Frankenstein goes, and Blitzkid, because they both just kind of happened. I never went pursuing to be in Blitzkid. It happened. Blitzkid's my first band I've ever been in, and I've been in it for 12 years. It's never been so much a process or, you know, like a means to an end as much as it was just being myself. And I got picked up for Gorgeous Frankenstein solely through, like, luck, through Dr. Chud. You know, Doyle called me up. He wanted me in the band, and you know, what do you say? It's like, you know, I listened to the music, of course. I didn't just blindly say, okay, just for the sake of being in a band with Doyle, you know. But I heard the music, and I thought there was potential to it. And I never intended to be the front man for that band. I just tried out as bass. And, you know, things didn't work so well. As you can refer back to the Gorgeous Frankenstein interview with the singer who was before me. And he needed someone to step up to the plate, and that's what I did. And, you know, there's critics, and, you know, there always will be in any band, and I'm aware of that. And it doesn't bother me that, you know, I receive criticism, because I have, you know, by being in Blitzkid, people see this as my band, this is my venture. And then Gorgeous Frankenstein, I automatically stepped in the shoes of someone like Michael Graves, who, you know, stepped in the shoes of Glenn Danzig, who could completely empathize with my position, I would assume. And the thing is like, I'm not trying to reestablish or recreate anything, you know what I mean? I'm just stepping up to help my band out. A band is a, you know, a meeting of individuals for the sole betterment of, like, a purpose, and that's what I wanted to do. And, you know, that's what I'm going to continue to do. We're going to record a new record. We've already spoke about it. We talked today, as a matter of fact, Doyle and I, about this, and we've got a pretty good year ahead of us.
The song Mary in the Storm has an almost innocent theme to it. What was the inspiration for it, and does it reflect a personal experience?
Yeah, I can answer that again, because I wrote that song 6 years after the fact of an incident, which really wasn't so much as an incident as much as it was like a course of events that played out into one drawn-out memory, and that was a girl that I used to date. And it wasn't so much that we were forbidden to see each other. I don't want to get so, like, Shakespearean about it, but, you know, things weren't cool. We didn't really gel together as far as, like, our lifestyles, and we didn't concern ourselves with that so much as, you know, her parents did. And we would just basically see each other on the side at night, and we would run around. And I mean, there's a lot of imagery in that song that, you know, if you don't know what it's about, it's kind of archaic, but it refers to a lot of things that went on. Like, she lived near a farm, so, you know, got busted hanging out because we let horses out once, and they got away. And, I mean, what do? There's horses in someone's yard. And obviously, you know, someone's got to be the culprit. And that's where that came from. And, you know, just running around at night. And it was one of those things where, like, it took years and years to go by before I realized that it was a song, because when things are going on, like most things in life, you're not really aware of it, you know, unless you're high. And it's not me. It's not my thing. So it's all residual for me. Things kind of come to you at weird times. And I was just in my basement, and I was thinking about all those things. And, you know, there comes points in your life where you realize, like, the innocence that kind of, like, held you in its grip is not so much a force in your life anymore. You know, the magic changes into other things, but that was just more or less reflection back on a time, you know. And I think that's why a lot of people can identify with it, because it's cryptic enough to where people can apply their own experience to it, and it's universal enough to where I think the emotion of what I just said kind of comes through it. And to me, that's like a good song, and that's not like, you know, patting myself on the back. That's just like a big, like, whew, for me, you know, like, that's what I think every artist should strive to do. And if I can write one song like that, then that's cool. And I bring it to these guys, and they bring it together, and, you know, it's just how it works.
So you guys recently played overseas in Europe. Would you guys like to tell us about your experience there?
The last time we were in Europe was back in October, November for the Hell Nights tour. It was the third Hell Nights tour that they had. The second one we'd been on. The first time was with the Resurrects in 2006. This one was a little shorter, and there were, as was the first one we were on, there were some great bands. We went out with the other Zombie and the Skeletones and a band called Der Fluke, which is like, they're one of the best known like psychobilly bands in Germany. They're like a cult. Their cult following over there is ridiculous. They've been around since 1981 or something.
They're like a German version of the Cramps.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And with the diversity of the bands on the bill, we were kind of sweating it at first because we've been out with the others several times over there. We know those guys, friends of ours, and we always have a good time with them. That wasn't a worry, and it really wasn't so much a worry as just Der Fluke's kind of like psychobilly-ish. Zombie and the Skeletones kind of got like a 50s, 60s pop kind of vibe to them with a little bit of punk rock and a little bit of everything else mixed in. So we were kind of wondering how we were going to fit at first, but we ended up actually being great friends with Zombie and the Skeletones as well as the guys in Der Fluke, and it was a great tour because there were no egos. Everybody got along, everybody was friendly, and we all had a great time. And every one of the shows except for like 2 of them sold out, so it was amazing.
We work better under diversity. It's kind of in our nature. So I don't know.
Is there a noticeable difference between the American crowds and the crowds over in Europe?
Absolutely. Night and fucking day, man. and I would love to sit here and tell you that like America is as equal to European crowds, because as an American, I would love nothing more than to represent my home country with an awesome kick-ass music scene and involvement of such things. But I don't say this in a way that is meant to be derogatory towards America. It's just that this is what we do. We do this day in and day out, and this is our lives. And when we're not doing it day in, day out, by that touring is what I mean. We're writing, and we're just preparing for things like tours with that material. And it's just going over there. Everything is geared towards the arts, and it's not necessarily so much the crowd. It has not everything to do with the audience participation as much as it does just general acceptance of arts. In America, you can't even get art programs in schools anymore. It sucks. Everyone's so focused on sports and,
they're taking away music programs in a lot of high schools.
As a country, America is just so far behind on arts and sensibilities, of artistic things. And, it's not that everyone has to walk around in a fucking beret and like black and white striped shirts and drink lattes and, talk about Bukowski and Vonnegut or anything like that. But it's just like, our government, even for that matter, just there's no funding for it. No one cares. And there's a lot of places we play where the kids run the venue, and they're given old establishments, old buildings that, instead of being raised and torn down to put in a fucking Walmart or a Starbucks, they're given to kids, and they say, here's the funding, you guys take care of it, here's you a venue. And everyone is responsible for that, and they take care of it, and it's much better. I don't know how to describe it. I'm happy to be here. Like, I'm not sitting here like, grumbling and complaining that we're playing the Stray Cat in, Tempe, Arizona. I love it. I'm happy to be playing anywhere. It is night and day. It's like, you can't help, like, comparison is the nature of existence. You look at things and you compare, and it is what it is. Night's night, day's day, and that's Europe and this is America.
The biggest thing that I noticed too is in America, especially shows like this, we notice to make sure people. We notice there's some death rock kids, there's some psychobilly kids, even a couple of metalhead guys roaming around. It's a mixture of people. But over in Europe, which there's a mixture of people over there too. But with our style of music, especially since it's kind of a new thing over there, it's only been around over there in public consciousness for maybe 4 or 5 years at this point. So you're seeing Harlock shirts as far as the eye can see, and Bone Gloves and the whole nine. So it's really cool for us when we go over there because, by and large, over here, a good crowd for us, as far as, like, versus Europe. Over in Europe, we're playing with 500-600 kids a night. Over here, we're lucky if we get, 200, 300 people every 4 or 5 shows. I'm not complaining about that, but it's funny to me because, when we're over there, like the guys from the other or whatever, we'll be at a venue, and they'll be like, oh, tonight only 200 people, not such a good turnout, and I'm like, what are you talking about? This is awesome. So it's very unusual for us because they view that as like, oh, it's kind of a shitty turnout, but to us we're like, oh, tonight was 20 people.
And not only that, but it's like sensory overload tends to nullify everything in a place like America because there's so much going on. Everyone's striving for the same thing. There's bands on every corner, every garage, every street. And, the same could be said by Europe, but you just look at per capita reasons, behind that. And it's just going to be harder in a place like America to do anything for that matter.